Is this ugly? Do you like this? Hello. Let's chug some coffee first. Oh my god. Americano. More like Americano. Just kidding. It's really strong. Are you ready? You're not. I am... Sorry, for those of you... Oh, okay. Welcome back to my channel. This one's gonna be unhinged. So I'm upset. I'm frustrated. There's a lot of things going on in my mind. And I just decided to turn... Like, I was yelling at the mirror. And I just decided, why not yell at you guys? So here we are. If you're new here, if you've had the unfortunate event of accidentally crossing paths with my YouTube channel, hi, my name is Amanda Ray, and I left a polygamous cult when I was 17. My dad's a polygamist. He decided to boink his sister. How do I usually say this? My mom's the second wife. The first wife is her sister. The third wife is his sister. So yeah, you think like there's plenty of fish in the sea. We're talking about how the world has almost like 8 billion people now. But my dad had a thing for his sister, so that's where we leave that. But wait, it was God that told him to do it. Anyways, the holidays. I think the holiday season is really just messing with my head lately, because this is the 9th year in a row that I'm not allowed to come home for Christmas and Thanksgiving. So do you want me to talk about that? I don't want you to sit here and feel bad for me. Don't feel bad for me, okay? It's been 9 years. I'm used to it. I want to talk about, though, how like polygamy and the idea of polygamy just makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. And I'm going to talk in my perspective of growing up, being a daughter of a second wife, being someone who was taught to live polygamy in order to get into the celestial kingdom of God, and also pushed to marry my cousin, pushed like my whole life to being prepped to be a polygamous wife, okay? So I'm talking on experience, I'm talking on 17 years of trauma and knowing other cults like the FLDS, the AUB, the Liber, like I know about all of this shit, okay? So it's not just me, like watching someone else's life and like discussing what I think of their life. I actually lived it. Now, I'm not going to say much about like, because I know that like, I'm talking about Joseph Smith, who started the idea of polygamy. I'm going to be talking a lot about that. I'm not really going to be diving deep into like the Muslim culture, because I know some of the Muslim culture does that, and I've talked to some of them that they, well, this is the conversation I had with one prominent person who believed in polygamy, who was not from Joseph Smith, but was from, you get what I'm saying. He said that like their wives are like the highest, they put their wives on a pedestal, and like they will take the blame for their wives, and he was acting like these women are so precious. And I had so much to I kind of argued with him, because I'm like, if this one stone is so precious, why are you trying to get so many of them? And like, then you're going to neglect that. You know what I mean? Like if it's one and you're like, oh, then why are you like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, we're not talking about that, because I don't know much about that culture other than my experience with talking to them. We're talking about the Utah, the American polygamists, okay? So let me just start by saying let's put Joseph Smith, biblical, angels, all of that stuff aside for 1 second. It doesn't logically make sense to live polygamy. I just looked this up, and on average, you're more likely to have a boy than if you're pregnant, you're more likely that baby is going to be a boy than a girl. It's, I think, 51% chance. So there's a small chance, a small percentage more that you're going to have a boy versus a girl. So if these polygamous groups were right, where polygamy needs to stay alive and polygamy is the true way to get into the celestial kingdom, there will not be enough women for all of the men. There just won't. Especially if they're doing what my cult leader, he was marrying 27 wives for himself. Or Warren Jeffs. You're going to end up with a lot of single men. A lot. And I brought this up when I was in the polygamous cult that I grew up in. You know what they would say? There are more righteous women than righteous men. So we get one righteous man with a bunch of righteous women. And I always thought, Daniel? David, the guy that went to prison for raping his niece, that's the righteous man that needed to live polygamy, that they all had to share? You know what I think? If we're so damn righteous, why are we being treated like shit? If we're so, women are naturally righteous, why are men the ones that are running these cults? If it's so much more righteous women than righteous men, how come there's no numbered women? All of the people on the walls at the school, numbered man. Even in the Mormon religion. Sorry to pull you out into this, but we lived the true teachings of Joseph Smith, so I have to pull you guys into this. In Joseph Smith's teachings and in all of the, you go to the churches in the LDS church, men framed everywhere. If women are so naturally righteous, why are you guys stepping on us all the time? Why are you guys saying we can't hold the priesthood? Why are you guys saying we shouldn't be the ones saying the prayer? I don't know if the Mormon church does, but in our church, I never saw women saying the prayers. I never saw women doing the sermons unless it was some lower level, teaching us how to dress or some shit. You're contradicting yourself. You are. Okay. So let's put that aside, okay? We're putting aside now the logical sense where polygamy doesn't make sense. Let's talk about the Bible, okay? The one reason why, the one thread from this holy book that makes everyone think that you have to live polygamy to get to the celestial kingdom is Doctrine and Covenants 132. That's not even in the Bible, by the way. Doctrine and Covenants was made with Joseph Smith, right? Doctrine and Covenants 132, there's a little section, and I'll show it for you guys that are watching, but I'll say it for you guys that are listening on the podcast. It says, maybe I'll just read it word for word. So, revelations given through Joseph Smith, the prophet at Navajo, Illinois, recorded July 12th, 1843, related to the new and everlasting covenant, including the eternity of the marriage covenant and the principle of plural marriage. Although the revelation was recorded in 1843, evidence indicates that some of the principles... Sorry, this is just what you'll find on LDS.org. So, let's go into... The terms and conditions of the covenant are set forth. Celestial marriage and the continuation of the family unit enables men to become gods. The straight and narrow way leads to eternal life. Blah, 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 blah. Verily, thus saith the Lord unto you. Sorry for anyone who doesn't like reading out of... I'm triggered, so we can be triggered together if you hate hearing this stuff. Because just so you know, this was written by a man. Sorry, I'm trying to soothe you while I'm being triggered. I'm trying to soothe myself, really. This verse right here was what they used to control us in the order. So I'm getting very triggered right now. Verily thus saith the Lord unto you, servant Joseph, that inasmuch as you have inquired of my hand to know and understand wherein I, the Lord, justifies my servants Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as also Moses, David, Solomon, blah, 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 touching the principle and doctrine of their having many wives and concubines. Behold, and lo, I am the Lord thy God, and will answer thee. Sorry, my camera died, okay? And no, it didn't die, actually. This card was full. I needed a little break, too, to take a breather, because I was livid. Okay, so basically 132 talks about how you have to get sealed, and then the marriage part, right? Okay, here we go. I am the Lord thy God, and will give unto thee the law of my holy priesthood, as was ordained by me, the Father, and before. Abraham received all things whatsoever he received by revelation and commandment by my word, saith the Lord, and hath entered into exaltation, and sitteth upon the throne. Abraham received promises concerning his seed, and of the fruits of his loins, from whose loins ye are, namely of my servant. This promise is yours also, because ye are of Abraham, and the promise was made unto Abraham by this law. They call it the law of Abraham. That's what we called it in the order. The law of Abraham. This promise is yours also because you are of Abraham, and the promise was made unto Abraham. And by this law is the continuation of the works of my father. Go ye therefore and do the works of Abraham. Enter ye into my law, and ye shall be saved. God commanded Abraham, and Sarah gave Hagar to Abraham to wife. And why did she do it? Because this was the law. And from Hagar sprang many people. Was Abraham therefore under condemnation? Verily I say no, I the Lord commanded it. Abraham was commanded to offer his... Anyways, so I am getting too triggered to read this whole thing, but you can read it. It's Doctrine and Covenants 132. You can literally look it up on your phone. But the law of Abraham, okay, let me just dissect this. So they would teach us in these polygamous cults, and I heard Mormon men telling me that we will be living polygamy in the afterlife because of the law of Abraham and Doctrine and Covenants 132. If you want to hear that whole story, it was my boss. It was my boss that told me that. I worked for this Mormon guy. Anyway, if you want to hear that whole story, I'll do a whole video on that. I believed and was told my whole life that this law of Abraham in Doctrine and Covenants 132 was because God directed, Abraham to live polygamy. And now if we want to live eternal life with our families, we have to also live the law of Abraham, which is polygamy. Do you guys know the story of Abraham? Have you guys ever read it? Okay, I'm asking, sorry, no, I'm not yelling at you guys. I'm yelling at the order people that are watching and preaching that you have to live that way. Do you guys know the story of Abraham? Let's pull up the Bible. I know for those of you who don't like hearing about the Bible, you can skip this part, but I feel like it's very relevant when we're talking about polygamy because they all try to claim that polygamy comes from the law of Abraham, which is from God. So I, as a kid in the order, feeling like polygamy doesn't make any sense and it makes me feel sick to my stomach that they want to push me onto a man and be faithful and loyal to a man while he can go do whatever the hell he wants. They were using this against me. So guess what I did? I used the Bible against them. And I learned about Abraham, okay? So it's Genesis 16:1 in the King James Version. Now Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid. And this is also like in my video that I'm coming out with the Handmaid's Tale. They use this in the Handmaid's Tale. That's coming soon. Now Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. Sarah said to Abram, behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarah. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar to the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife. And he went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. I'm just going to cite these things instead of reading you guys the whole Bible. Okay, so we're in Genesis, okay? God promises Sarah and Abram that they will have posterity. They will have a child. Basically, Sarah doesn't believe God, so she tells Abram, go sleep with my servant Hagar. Genesis 16.2 is when Hagar conceives, and then Sarah despises Hagar and sends her away, and then an angel comes to the crying Hagar and is like, hey, it's okay. Basically, it kind of feels like what happened was they weren't supposed to do that. They were supposed to just trust that God was going to give them posterity. And then Sarah was impatient and was like, well, go sleep with the handmaid or whatever. And the funny thing is they have the Doctrine and Covenants 132, like this is the law of Abraham, you need to do that. But really it was the law of Sarah. Sarah's the one that was like, I'm getting impatient with the Lord for not giving me a child, so go sleep with her. Give me a baby, damn it. And then she realizes afterwards, she's like, I didn't like that. Then we have in Genesis 16:11 through 12, later God fulfills his promise to Abraham and Sarah gave birth to a son named Isaac. God did fulfill his promise to them that they would have the child, but Sarah was impatient and went over and tried to take matters in her own hand and get herself a child from the other girl. So nowhere does it say, God directed Abraham to sleep with Hagar. Nowhere does it say that, or that God said the law of Abraham is polygamy. Never, okay? Then, sorry, I don't want to read so much of it, but I'm pretty sure Ishmael, the son of Hagar, and Hagar went to go live in the wilderness. I'm pretty sure God and them agreed, yeah, she needs to go far away now. So the mistress and her son leaves. And they're not living polygamy like these modern polygamists want to paint out this picture that Abraham was here's my wife Hagar and my wife Sarah and we're living polygamy happily. No, they got sent away. It's not like he kept having kids with her. And then he kept continuing his life with Sarah. And the thing is, again, I want to reiterate this for any polygamists that are trying to twist the words. Go read it. Nowhere does it say God commanded them to live polygamy. It actually almost seems as if it's the opposite. God was like, be faithful and true to what sorry, I sound like I'm preaching. I don't believe, all of this was written by man. Okay, I'm just going to say that. All of the Bible was written by man. But men keep trying to use the Bible to control people. So here I am dissecting this polygamy thing. And let's just throw the idea of polygamy out the window. Because, first of all, the law of Abraham, where all of these Mormon people and polygamists want to say, Doctrine and Covenants 132, the law of Abraham, you can't get the celestial kingdom unless you live polygamy. Well, if you actually go to the Genesis and read There's no mention of the law of Abraham being polygamy and God directing that, okay? It was Sarah who didn't believe that God was going to give Sarah a child, so she went and told her husband to sleep with the handmaid. And if that's the law of Abraham, then it really is the law of Sarah, and the law of Sarah is don't trust God and go take matters in your own hands. I just wanted to dissect that whole part because I feel like if I'm talking about polygamy and how like irrelevant it is and how much it doesn't make any sense, we have to talk about the Bible because that's what their reasoning for polygamy is, the Bible, because it's oh so holy, when in reality it's a lot of men that just really want to cheat, and they want to still feel like a good person, so they're trying to mask it with this religion, but they also want to control the women. So here's the thing that doesn't make sense as well. You have a man, okay, and you have a woman. And the woman is supposed to be loyal and faithful to this man and true to him, bear his children, whatever. And he's allowed to have another woman and another woman and another woman and more kids. And the woman has to still be faithful. Just first of all, that's very unfair. And second, a lot of the time in these polygamous cults, the men say things like, who I choose to try to marry or pursue is none of your business. So it's like, we know the 10 Commandments, right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. So what is the definition of adultery if here you are saying it's none of your business who my next wives are going to be, but you need to be faithful and loyal to me? Thou shalt not live adultery. What the hell is adultery? If that's not adultery, what is? I'm going to go mess around. I'm going to go boink some bitches, and you're just going to be okay with it. Okay? What the hell? And there's women who are being deceived, who really think that they're going to get this pedestal in heaven and sit on this high throne in heaven because they endured so much on this earth. So they deserve, they're just like praying and hoping that there is that celestial kingdom because they worked so hard here for this man. Really, it's kind of a sad truth, is like, you are hoping that this man is right. You are hoping that this religion is right because this life on earth is hell, isn't it? It is hell watching the person you love go boink his sister and her sister, and like, here you are just praying that it's all going to make sense in the end. But who's the one telling you that it is? Them. The ones that are benefiting off of using you. I always got in arguments with my mom when I first left. She would like sneak off to come see me, and we would always end our like dinner or whatever we were doing in a converse. We would always argue. And a lot of the times she would bring up where I am going through so much, I'm suffering so much to show my truth, my devout truthfulness to the Lord. Like, I'm willing to suffer so much for him that I'm going to be in heaven sitting on a throne, you know, like she knew in her mind that she was going to make it to heaven because she's been suffering so much. There's no way God's not going to let her get into heaven. And I was like, Mom, you're choosing to suffer by being in this abusive relationship, thinking that that's going to get you into heaven. I could choose to go be an addict and live on the streets. That's a hard life. Being homeless and addicted to a drug or all drugs or alcohol, whatever, that's a hard life. I could go do that and have the same mindset. Oh, I am going to heaven because I chose to endure so much hell that God's going to put me on the highest pedestal. But she's like, no, Amanda, because obviously that's not what God wants. Well, why is your lifestyle obviously what God wants? Allowing yourself to be submitted to this abusive husband, and your children are being neglected, your children are being raised with trauma, and you keep having more and more and more, giving more and more trauma to these kids. How is that God's plan? And how is that also you're suffering so much to get into heaven, and you're on a higher pedestal than someone who's suffering on the streets over here? You know? And my mom would always just roll her eyes like she's right and I'm wrong. And I was like, it's just because you want to believe that your whole life isn't a lie. Again, I use this quote all the time, the Mark Twain quote, it is easier to fool someone than to convince them that they have been fooled, because a lot of us have pride. We don't want to believe that we've literally been living polygamy, marrying our cousins and shit, for nothing. So it's a hard pill to swallow. And that's also why I feel like a lot of them comment mean things to me and they send me rude messages, because it is hard to hear. It is hard to hear that what you eat, sleep, and breathe in this religion is a lie. It is a lie that benefits the leader. It was very hard for me to realize that. Like, it's not like I knew when I was born into the cult that all of this was toxic and I was like, I'm getting out. I ate that shit up, you guys. I was like, I'm going to be a good polygamous wife. I would talk to my friends like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if the Heavenly Father wanted us to be sister wives? And then you start to think aside from what they're telling you. And it was hard to get to that point, because a lot of the time when I would have questions, they would say, don't question the one above. The one above knows more than you, so you need to just trust them. They use this analogy of, it was like a car. You have this car and all the parts need to be following the one above, basically, to be able to work. The car needs all the pieces to fit. So if you're questioning and you're stepping up, you're going to make so that this work's not going to work. The Lord's work needs us all to just submit. It was hard for me to finally start questioning and being like, this doesn't make any sense. Because every time I would do that, I would get scolded and I would get ridiculed and I would get a bad reputation. If you're struggling with your beliefs, if you're going to take one thing from this video, question everything until it makes sense or until you're content with it. The more I questioned, the more confused I was. I was like, oh my gosh, they don't even have an answer for half of this shit. They're just pulling it out of their ass. And the reality is, it's so interesting that all of these churches, after I left the cult, I was searching for another one. I was searching for the truth, because I had this idea, kind of like the Joseph Smith idea, there is a true church, you just have to find it, right? So I was searching, and I was going to Presbyterian churches, I was going to Lutheran churches, I was going to the Mormon church, and what I was realizing is they all have, they're all the same. They're all, and I'm not saying that religion is bad, but it's a community, and there's someone talking on the stage, and you're all listening, and I agree that if a church can help you be a better person, that's a good thing. But I disagree 1,000,000,000% that you should put that. I don't care how much research that prophet or that bishop, whatever, has done in the Bible. You do not put your relationship with God, with whatever you want to believe in is in the afterlife. You do not put that on them and let them have that control, because that is not something that they should have control of. It's not even something that they do have control of. You are the one that's going to have that relationship and is going to benefit from that. So why ask him, Anyway. Can you tell that I'm so frustrated with these churches using God to manipulate their followers? And here's the thing. A lot of people will be like, why would they want to do that? They're benefiting. What was Paul's number one thing? He wanted to make sure we were all signing those 10% forms and those inventory forms and making sure that our bank was within the cults, so that he could have access to our money. Another reason why he wanted to have us having so many kids, bring the souls to the earth, right? To grow the order, because no one's joining that shit. Except for Tom Green, okay? You guys remember who Tom Green is? Of course Tom Green is trying to join. He's like, a place where pedophilia is glorified, sign me up. Procreate as fast as we can so that Paul can use those people to his advantage, okay? You don't see Paul living in a shack. You don't see Paul driving around a piece of shit car. You know who you do see doing that? The ones at the bottom. The ones at the bottom of the food chain. You don't see Paul's brothers suffering. You know who did suffer? A lot of the wives. A lot of the kids. Here you are struggling and suffering for the work of the Lord to make it to the celestial degree in the kingdom of God, blah, blah, blah. And here's Paul's brothers over here buying $1,000 Star Wars toys with your money, your 10%, right? You're working so hard for the kingdom of God. It's the kingdom of Paul. That's what it is, plain and simple. Sorry, I went on a tangent. I have been thinking things for a while. Well, for my whole life, really. But the reality is these polygamous cults are sexist, first of all, because they believe that a woman should be serving a man. That is a woman's place. and that they need to not question, and that the men are the one that hold the priesthood. So ultimately, this idea that really shouldn't be here in this day and age, but it still is. And the point of me trying to explain, like, if we don't talk about it, it's going to keep happening. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how unfair it is to the women and the children. And if you're a good guy, it's honestly, that's why it was so hard to find a good guy in the order, because it breeds narcissistic men. It breeds men that are okay with pedophilia, that are okay with cheating, that are okay with, I'm the man of the house, so you do what I say. So then and the sad thing is, and this is coming from a woman who came from a cult, we settle for, that guy's better because he's not going to cheat on me. The bare minimum is what we're settling for and we're praising them for. That's not okay. And I think that even in the world, I've met a lot of women that do that, including myself. When I left, I settled for guys that were, oh my gosh, the bare minimum. He's actually caring about me. He's going to pay for the day. Wow. Women, we need to unite. We need to not do this, because I'm not saying it's our fault, okay? They're the narcissists. They're the ones that are treating us like shit, okay? They're the ones that need to own up to their shit. But if we keep letting them treat us like that, why would they have to own up to it? They're not all like that. But there are there's a very large number of men that are like this, even in the outside world. And maybe I'm in the Utah culture, and like that's even a higher number, because I feel a little better now. Sorry to put this all on you guys. I'm coming out with that video with The Handmaid's Tale because in The Handmaid's Tale, they literally use the same verses to control and manipulate women as the Order did. And it's so crazy how it's not just this polygamous cult problem, it's a society problem. It's almost like the more religious the man is, the more sexist he is. Have you noticed that? And this is just, again, my experience, but how do you notice that? It's a little weird. And maybe it's because they're reading these Old Testament, like they're reading this Old Testament like from way back in the day where they used to sell their daughters for cattle, and that was normal. And then they're thinking that applies to today. Like, also, I noticed a lot of people take the Bible, like a random verse that's something that happened. Like, it's like, this happened. And then they're like, oh, well, that happened in the Bible, so that means we have to do it. I've noticed a lot of people do that, when in reality it's like, it didn't say God said you have to do this. It just, this person did that. The end, Like, this person had concubines. The end. This one book, the Bible, has caused so much, like, wars, hatred, and it's like, isn't the idea of God and Christ supposed to be love? Like, love thy neighbor as thyself? But here we are using the Bible to hurt each other. Set religions aside. Set your belief of what happens when we die aside. Do you feel happier as a person when you're judging people and constantly finding fault with everyone around you and like gassing yourself up and thinking that you're better than everyone else? Do you really feel happy and content doing that? Does it really make your life, does it benefit you? And this is something that I have learned and I'm trying to incorporate in my everyday life. And as human beings, I think it's kind of like human nature that like when we're insecure about something, we start to judge someone else to make us feel better. And it's not helping us. It's not. It's just like, I think it's almost like a little, maybe it's like a little bit of serotonin or dopamine because we feel like we're better than that person over there. But in reality, we're all human, and you'll notice you're going to be so much happier and healthier just living a life filled with love. And I am not an example because I'm not there yet, but I will say the times where I sat there and I just gossiped, when I was in the order specifically, this person did this, did you know they did that before they got married? Oh my gosh. I was miserable. I was so sad. And then I came out and I did that a little bit too. Well, a lot, because that was what I was taught. Like, that's how we pass time in this cult. And I had to like actively try not to do that and try to be like, you know what? If I was living their life, I probably would be doing the same thing. So I can't judge them. The only people I have to judge are those pedophiles and those rapists. Like, that's different because I feel like there's victims. There's these victims that we need to protect, and we need to speak out against these men. These yuck, yuck, yuck. I try really hard to... There's a spider on the wall! Oh no, there's this piter. A piter! My whole point is, you're going to be happier and healthier if you just try to have an open mind and live with the glass half full and love and let love. You know, love yourself. At the end of the day, love yourself so much that it makes you love everything. Love everyone around you. And it's so much easier said than done, but making those little things every single day, those little acts of kindness toward yourself, or catching yourself when you're being mean to yourself or being mean to other people, and recognizing that can even be enough, you know, of a baby step. It's really hard for a lot of us to stop ourselves when we're doing those things. It really doesn't benefit us to sit there and judge other people every single day of our life. And I know a lot of order people get on my page and they're like, you're judging us, just let it go. Let the order go and move on with your life. You seem so miserable. Those ones always hurt me so much when they would say that, because I'm like, at the end of the day, do they think that I'm just sitting here in my room, like, punching a wall, like, I hate them, I hate them, I hate them? I did that when I first left in therapy. I was like, I hate them, I hate them, I hate them. I had to go through that mourning process, but I really feel like what has given me the drive to keep talking is knowing that if I had this to look up on YouTube when I was in the cult, do you know how progressed I would be by now? If at 17 I could have looked up, you know, why polygamy doesn't make sense, and came to this video and been like, you know what? There are some good points in that, and I'm going to take that with me. Because when I started to have that light go off, when someone told me, look up Daniel beating his daughter, look up why David Kingston went to prison. And I started finding the knowledge. I took a little break because I was feeling myself getting heated, but I actually got a text that says, here's a question to ask your viewers. A lot of men in the order seem to be stuck because they're told what to do. They take everything from you as along with your wage, and give you a lower wage if you start to ruffle the feathers. That's a good point to make, because I'm obviously a woman who came from the polygamy aspect of things, so I could see where the women were being abused and where the children were. I was a woman and a child, right? It's easier to see where the abuse is very prominent, which is where the women are being controlled and the children are being controlled. So that's very prominent, especially when some of these women are children, when they're making them get married. So I guess sometimes I do overlook where the men, and I try to be like fair, because obviously my little brother Eskel, he was a part of it, and if you go to his channel, he talks about the struggles being a man in the order. And I should just clarify that a lot of the times these men are questioning too, but they have so much at stake, you know. But the thing is, it's like these men kind of get bred to be narcissistic assholes, because if they don't do what they're told, then, you know, they could lose everything. So it's like, either be a narcissist and have a lot of wives and control them and do follow with the one above another, be the head of your house, or lose everything, you know? Don't even get a wife. You don't even get to have a good paying job. So that's a good point. I'm actually glad that I took a break and read that message, because that's a good thing to add to this video. When I started my YouTube channel, before I started it, I could not sleep at night knowing that there were all of these people suffering as victims and being very lost and confused, because remembering that I was that at one point. Like, sometimes I feel so guilty living a life of freedom, knowing that there's so many still confined to that. So I try my best to do my part to share my knowledge, and I really, really, really appreciate all of the kindness that I've gotten through this. Like, I've gotten obviously some hate, but I've learned to understand where the hate is coming from is from within, and not you know, doesn't need to be taken in. Sometimes I do take it in internally, because a lot of the times the hate comments are from family, but it just helps so much to have the support from you guys, the Culty crew, like everyone who has supported me along the way and helped me to, just motivated me to keep going. So I feel like I have to say that every time I start talking about, you know, my YouTube, because I'm so grateful of where I'm at and how much support and the community that I have now. Like I could have never imagined having this, never. And now I can't even imagine my life without it. Anyway, you deserve to be happy. Equality, don't be sexist, don't be racist, don't be homophobic, don't be judgmental, okay? Just love and let love, okay? Don't be naughty. Be good. And in the long run, it's gonna help you. It's gonna help you to love yourself, because then you accept that love. You know what I mean? Anyway. Do I know what I mean? No, I don't. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and letting me just rant my asshole off. Sorry for should I have a disclaimer? I did just kind of cuss a little more than I usually do. But I feel better now. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned for some of the future episodes that are gonna be pretty crazy. And if you want to hear more about a man's perspective on polygamy, then you can go to my little brother Eskel's channel. I'll leave it linked down below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I will see you on Sunday for a culty cup of coffee. 52. Okay, bye guys, love you. Love you guys, bye.